All right, it's the award-winning podcast show. It's always award-winning. Why is it always award-winning? Because we give ourselves an award. All right, guys, you got to show your coffee mug. Let me just see it there. Make sure you're drinking out of it. Where's yours at, Matt?
Right here.
Hold it up there. Let's see it. There we go. Brian, did you bring yours today?
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Okay, good to the last drop. All right, so we've got a good show here tonight. Tony Schroeder is joining us here any second. Tony, we're going to get to him in just a second here. And just remind everybody we're on Rumble, we're on X, and we're on YouTube. Just for a second, and then Tony Schroeder, he is the chairman of Putnam County, GOP. He's going to be joining us here in just a second, but let's see here. What did I do with it? I wanted to show you guys something. I don't think Trump put this out, but it's interesting. You got the guy. This is heavy metal at its best, right? Uncle Sam. You fucker! Oh, man. You got Trump on the drums. You got J.D. Vance. And you got Mitch McConnell. He's crying.
Mitch McConnell. That's great video. That's great.
They really get into it. I think, look at that. Look at the graphics on that. Soros. They're going after Soros. AOC.
Elizabeth Warren.
The games are done. The mask fell off. No more lies. We've had enough.
This is like, this is a great song for younger kids, I guess. I didn't know Trump could play so good on the drums like that. I didn't know that. All right.
Wow.
But that's better than any cup of coffee right there. That'll just get you moving. All right, Tony, are you out there?
I'm. Can you hear me, Joe?
I can hear you, but I just don't see you for some reason.
I can't seem to get my camera to play along here. I'm going to have to mess around with it here a bit, but we'll go audio for a bit if that works for you.
Yeah, that's fine. We could go audio, sure. No problem there. And if you do get it fixed, just connect with it. We'd like to see you.
100%.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's good to see you. So let's just talk about. So you're the chairman of Putnam County, GOP out there, and I know. Can you see me? By the way, when you're in Zoom like that, you can see me, right?
Yeah, I can see you well. Yep, and I see Matt on as well. Good evening. I for some reason my webcam decided to crap out on me this evening, so sorry about that.
Gotcha. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to show you something. Watch this clip here. This is from your Lincoln Reagan Day dinner. I think it was 2 years ago.
Okay. Yes.
But you had Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Here she is.
Sure did, and in fact, that clip is a lot of fun because that was recorded by one of her staffers as she was coming out from the back. And I talk all the time about social media being a force multiplier. They used that video of her entrance and her speech and clipped it into, probably 20 different short clips that they used, wound up with over 250,000 impressions on that in the week or two afterwards. It was absolutely crazy.
this very one, I got it off your Facebook page. So this very one right here, right? This
is the one. Yep, exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, she is just a ball of fire. There's just no question about it. She's a ball of fire. So how was she at your Lincoln Day? Was she did she live up to the billing?
Absolutely fantastic. And in fact, the thing that most surprised me is we've had a number of pretty good speakers. Jim Jordan in 2019, Governor Scott Walker, and J.D. Vance's first campaign appearance in 2021. And
stop right there. But isn't that amazing that if you go back to 2021, J.D. Vance is like almost an unknown.
It really was, and in fact, it was just sort of coincidental. We had Scott Walker lined up to come, and JD's folks gave me a call a couple weeks ahead and said, "Do you think it'd be okay if he would stop and just attend the dinner?" I said, "Sure, yeah, that would be great." Comes in and he says, "Could you give me 5 minutes or so?" I said, "Absolutely."
Wow,
and
wow,
it
that's
was
terrific.
phenomenal. And then we had him back as keynote in 22, which was terrific. Then MTG and Bernie and Ben Shapiro this year. So we've had a pretty good lineup, but I have to say we had a ton of positive comments after Marjorie Taylor Greene was here. Her speech was just phenomenal, and great event, great people. It was really a pleasure to have her in town, and worked out really well.
Yeah, I want to show just the end of this clip here, because I was really amazed at how many people you had. This whole place is packed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, that is an amazing Reagan Day dinner.
That night was about just under 400, and when we did Shapiro with Bernie this year, we had about 680, something like that, which is about as many as you can fit in that hall. So it was a very good time this year as well. But we typically throw one of the largest ones on the west side of Ohio, and usually have really outstanding attendance from folks in Northwest Ohio and really across the state, especially political figures that are looking to campaign up this way. It's a pretty good place to stop.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at the demos, too. You guys have like 85% Republican
The most
in your
Republican
territory.
county in Ohio, yeah.
And I have 85% Democrat where I'm in my area. So we're like just flip-flop the whole thing.
I do feel sorry for my colleagues on the committee who are living in less positive areas. I actually had 3 precincts this year that went over 91% in turnout.
Wow.
My own hometown of Glandorf, we had 65 people that were registered but didn't vote. The rest of us all showed up. So it's always a pretty good thing to have.
Hey, let's go into this here. Let's talk about this whole musical chairs thing. I want to get your thoughts and impressions on this, and also I have Brian and Matt with me as well. But let's talk about this for a minute. If you can see that chart and everything like that. We got Husted. Husted is, let's start with Husted. Husted is now in the U.S. Senate, which is great. He's in the U.S. Senate. But he's there for what, 2 years? Any idea who might be challenging him on the Democratic side?
Well, the only obvious one to me, and I think to a lot of other folks I've talked to in the party, is Sherrod Brown. Sherrod has made it pretty clear, at least he did make it pretty clear, that he wasn't done with politics. Seems obvious that he would take another crack at this. And while he's still, popular, relevant, and has all the money, I would guess. So I think he's his most likely candidate. In a midterm with lower turnout, probably, and typically those don't favor the incumbent president, that could be a tight race. So I think we're going to work very, very hard to try to make sure that we get Senator Husted reelected. And I would say I don't really expect a primary for Senator Husted. Obviously, always possible. But I don't think that's likely, at least at this stage. We're a year out from the filing deadline, so anything we talk about tonight is guesswork. But that's kind of how it looks right now to me.
Right, I would agree with you on that too. I just don't see anybody coming in there. It's going to be hard enough to get him across the finish line, and we don't need a primary. But hey, somebody comes along. Let's talk about Yost here for a minute. Okay, so Yost is interesting. He was auditor, attorney general. Now he wants to be governor. This is why we do this whole thing here with this musical chairs. Okay,
Go around, and
because
when the music stops, sit down.
it is just kind of crazy. It's crazy. All right, so he is the current attorney general. He wants to be governor, but he's going up against some really tough competition. Vivek Ramaswamy has just thrown his name into the hat. So what do you think about Yost, and what do you think about Vivek?
Well, certainly the governor's race has changed pretty dramatically in the course of the last month or so. A month or so ago, we were looking at Dave Yost and likely Robert Sprague is probably getting into that race, potentially one or two others. With Vivek making it clear that he's going to announce, and he is announcing, I think, next week. The early polling I've seen shows him with a massive lead. I think that's public polling, so not giving away any secrets there or anything. And certainly I think he's going to wear the mantle of the Make America Great Again movement likely be endorsed by the president. And he's already working with J.D. Vance's campaign team from the 22 cycle. So I think he's going to be formidable. I wouldn't say that that's a done deal yet because you don't know how these things play out. And again, it's a year until the filing deadline. So
yeah, a lot can happen.
We have to see how they go.
Yeah, a lot can happen in that time. Wow. But right now, yeah, I would say because of all the national attention and everything like that, he's probably got to be the front runner over Yost. But I wouldn't count Yost out. What do you think? What's your thoughts on Yost?
Well, I like Dave Yost a lot. I don't know him quite as well as some of the other folks in the field. He's been an outstanding attorney general and certainly served with distinction as Ohio auditor. He comes from Delaware County, which is a very important county in our party, very high turnout. In fact, they were right behind us in statewide turnout this last time around. A lot of Republican vote in that area and around the north side of the Columbus suburbs. So I think he'll have some real strength with his own base. We'll just have to see how this campaign develops over the next few months and see what the trend lines look like, see if anybody else gets in.
Yeah.
A divided 3 or 4 way primary certainly would favor anybody who isn't Vivek Ramaswamy, and or I wouldn't say favor, but will help them. And so we'll have to see what the state of the race looks like as we get a little bit farther into it.
Yeah. Let's look at Auditor LaRose. He has no competition right now, right? Is it just him?
Yeah, I don't think he does. And it's been talked about for a while that he was likely to make a run for auditor if he wasn't appointed to the U.S. Senate previously. And I've not heard of anybody else who's talked about that race yet. But again, early on, we just had a couple of announcements in the Secretary of State and Treasurer races this week. So it's entirely possible that there's some other folks are looking at it. I think it's a race that the Secretary would do very well in, and his name recognition statewide is certainly very high, which is really a great way to start when you're trying to run a statewide race. If people recognize your name, that's going to be a big help for him, I think.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. He's got great name recognition. Faber for Attorney General. I don't think anybody's going to challenge Faber unless you know otherwise, but at least not at this point, right?
Not to my knowledge. And I have to say I know Keith Faber very well, good friend. He's from Western Ohio, and you'll find when you talk with me, Joe, that I'm a Northwest and Western Ohio chauvinist. I think this is the most important part of the state in Republican politics. And look at the leadership of what's going on in Ohio right now. The Senate president is in Northwest Ohio in Henry County. Speaker of the House is in Allen County. Faber from Mercer County, and Secretary or Treasurer Sprague from Hancock County. We're seeing a real concentration of some of Ohio's leaders up this direction. And the phrase I've started to use is when Ohio looks for leadership, Ohio looks northwest. And I think that benefits any of these candidates, especially.
Yeah, but you're not biased in any way.
I am entirely biased. I freely admit it. So the only danger of living in Northwest Ohio is we're too close to the Michigan line. So there's plenty of U of M support. But,
you don't want to actually go take a car ride and just meander into Michigan. All right, that would be horrible.
It can happen. It can happen. Yeah,
it can happen. All right, now if we go with Sprague, he's Secretary of State, so he'll be looking over the election process and everything. Is that good?
It is very good. In my own opinion, Robert Sprague is a good friend of mine. We've worked very close politically for a number of years. He's just a half hour away from me. He's been very good in working in particular with party chairs up in our corner of the state, and it is at just about every event and involved in just about every event. So he's got a strong base to start from, which is going to help him out, I think, tremendously in this race. And he also understands the role, I believe, very well, and I think will run a very, very solid race. He does have opposition, and former Senator Antani, Niraj Antani from down in Southwest Ohio, has also indicated that he's running for that seat. I think that's going to be an interesting race. We'll see how that develops as it gets underway. I think Antani's probably, I'd have to call him the underdog at this point. And the way it looks to me, I don't think his name recognition is as high, and he's running from an area of the state that isn't known for, having a broad base, I guess I should say, of Republican support. So it's going to be interesting to see how his campaign develops and if he can be competitive against Robert Sprague.
Okay, so
I'm
would
just
be a
going to interject
primary
there, Tony. So just for a moment, so I believe I saw on, and unless it's a fake, a fake news or a fake account, I think Antani switched races. He had posted earlier this week on Facebook that he was suspending his run for Secretary of State, and is going to be, and I thought I saw, yes, he's announcing for State Treasurer 2026.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so, I must have missed that. I was away a fair bit this week, actually in Columbus more than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I mean, he had posted about Robert Sprague having entered the race because, remember, everybody's sort of shifting around. And so Robert Sprague had been talking about a gubernatorial run, but I think when that sort of thinned out and we saw Vivek's, basically going to be running, Sprague, shifted his focus, and I think that caused Antani to shift his focus now over to, I think it's treasurer. So that's at least according to his Facebook, and that was this week. And I think Joe had put up Senator Rogner's picture. She's term limited out of the Senate coming up, and so I think she will then be her versus Antani for treasurer.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I did see about the Senator Rogner's, but I had missed the Antani announcement. So it can be a different dynamic there, I think. Senator Rogner's had some very solid experience in the Senate, has done some really excellent legislation as well. I think, the neck of the woods that she's from, that's probably a...
what happened?
Both of them.
Tony, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just finishing. I think just mentioning that with Senator Rogner getting in the race, I think she's also going to be a very solid candidate there. Has some pretty strong backing, I think, in her own constituencies, and a real record to run on, which is something I think that matters when you're talking about a down ballot race.
Hey, also for Secretary of State, there was one other, and I forgot what her name was. Matt, do you remember?
I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to. I was trying to remember. Was it a three-way at the time for Secretary of State? But I can't quite remember.
Boy. Anyhow,
I must have missed that one. I didn't.
So there had been a lot of talk about Senator Teresa Gavarone.
Yeah, Gavarone running for Secretary of State. Have you heard? That's what I've heard, but I don't know if you've heard that either.
I can say that I think she is looking at it, but she hasn't made any declaration yet, as I understand. So, and I was with her a day this week in Wednesday for the Ohio Ballot Board, and we didn't have an opportunity to talk about it. Fortunately, that was a short meeting this time, so we didn't have to hang around. But I know that she was at least considering it. I'm not sure what her actual plans are and when she might be announcing if she does decide to run.
So you're going to be on the ballot board, which is fantastic, because when the Democrats put up all these constitutional amendment changes, you got to speak out and say, hey, this word has been misspelled and this sentence doesn't make any sense, and you guys got to redo it.
Yeah,
right?
It has to be redone. Yes,
got to be
exactly
redone.
Right. Well, yeah, that's and interestingly to me, and I don't mean to swerve too far off, but the ballot board is very similar. I've been a long-time member of the Board of Elections here. It's very similar in terms of the structure. That is, there's two members appointed by the minority leaders of the two bodies of the General Assembly, and two members chosen by the Speaker and by the Senate President, with the Secretary of State as the chairman and basically the tiebreaker. He's the only statutory member. So consequently, it's not uncommon. I think the votes are usually unanimous, or they're 3-2. That's just how that works. But it was obviously designed that way. It itself was the result of a ballot issue back in 1974. And was designed to be a board that looked at any issue going on the ballot from a partisan viewpoint. So I don't feel uncomfortable about taking on that role.
That's great. We need some.
The way we do it.
We need somebody like you in there to cover that. I want to see if Brian has a question for you. Hi, Brian.
Yeah, I do have a question. How much money does it cost to get one of these seats at the state level? I mean, I know the commissioners in Lake County, they spend over $100,000, so I would imagine it's millions, right, to get a seat at the state
Brian,
level?
I think the straight answer to that is it depends where it is. Any number of members of the General Assembly are unopposed or have no serious competition, and those races are relatively inexpensive. I think most members probably budget $40,000 to $50,000, something like that, for a GA seat. If there isn't a strong primary and if there isn't serious competition, that's more than enough to do, all of the other functions. Some of them spend less. I know that for a fact in certain areas of Ohio. The really close seats, and especially if there's a strong primary, can be quite pricey. Low six figures is not out of the question by any means.
So something like a Vivek, if Vivek gets into the race, that ups the price of that seat, right?
Most significantly, I would imagine that the Vivek candidacy, and again, depending upon who runs against him, and that's a bigger question in my mind in the gubernatorial race than whether the primary, if there's a strong primary or not, because I don't know who the Democrats are possibly going to put up for governor. But that'll be a pricey race. I would say probably $15-20 million on his side wouldn't be outside of the question. And look, we're in an environment where the Marino versus Brown race last year topped out at close to $540 million, literally $500 million spent to elect.
$540 million for Marino?
Yeah. Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
But that was split. That was split. That's Democrat and Republican, right?
That is correct. Yeah, it was the most expensive race in the history of the United States for a Senate seat.
Amazing. Yeah, we needed that
is
Senate
amazing.
seat. We needed that Senate seat.
One more question, if I may, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I see someone that's been Secretary of State and then wants to run for Attorney General, are they qualified for the Attorney General spot? I mean, just because they held one office.
Yeah, in the case of Keith Faber, he's actually the state auditor currently, and as auditor has his own law enforcement authority. In fact, many had carried out, I'm not sure, I've even lost count, dozens, maybe 100 or more since he's been auditor, investigations that have led to prosecution and referrals to the Attorney General's office. So a big chunk of the auditor's state duties, in fact, are enforcement related. And so the other piece, at least in terms of Keith Faber, is he's a practicing attorney, courtroom lawyer, has been for many years. I think he'll be a very, very solid choice for that, combining both the private sector experience and his work as state auditor up till now.
I see. One other question. I was looking at the Lake County, the registered voters, and the number of Republicans, Democrats, and non-affiliated. 70% of the registered voters in Lake County are not affiliated with any party. Is that generally true in your area?
Very much so. In fact, even in a county as partisan as ours, and I should say we're currently, I think we have to call ourselves the most Republican county in Ohio. Mercer County is very close to that as well. We turn out 83%. We did in this last election of our voters, and that vote was more than 82% Republican. But our primary election turnout at its highest is usually only around 50% in a presidential year. So that means a good chunk of our Republican voters aren't registered or don't vote in the primary, I should say. And we see a lot of crossover voting as well from unaffiliated Democrats who traditionally voted Democrat, but who have been left behind by the modern Democratic Party. So they tend to swing our direction in presidential and big years in terms of how those ballots go too. So yeah, it's not uncommon. It's a part of it's an anomaly in the way that Ohio recognizes voter registration. You're registered to a party simply by showing up at a primary to vote. Maybe somebody decided they couldn't go that day, or they were, they're a regular voter, but they got busy, so they didn't turn out, pull a ballot in the primary. It doesn't mean that they've lost their party affiliation or their interest. They just aren't considered by the state to be a Republican voter any longer. So until they do it again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
Appreciate
pretty
that.
common. And I think I'd have to look at Lake's numbers, but I think that's still been a solidly Republican county for us, and you'll see that pretty much across the state.
Tony, we only got a couple minutes here, and we got to have you
Sure.
back because there's so much to talk about. But
Oh yeah.
hey, listen, real quick, last question here. This is the congressional map. They have to be redrawn, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
What?
Yeah, so
how would they
in
be
20
redrawn? Do you think? I mean,
Yeah, that. Thanks for setting it up. I should have led in with that. In 2022, because of the back and forth between the Redistricting Commission and the Supreme Court, with Justice O'Connor and her Democrat colleagues striking down each map that was sent to them, a group of citizens sued in federal court. A federal judge ordered that the same maps, or the last maps that had been passed, be used in 2022, but also indicated they were only valid for that election, which means, or for the next election, I should say, which means those lines have to be redrawn and a new map has to be produced before the next congressional cycle. And so, as I understand it, from talking with leaders of the bodies and some of the other folks involved, they're going to be looking at doing redistricting after the budget process is cleared through the General Assembly. So probably be convening to do maps again in September, I would guess, or maybe sometime in August, and starting that process again, for the next cycle to be getting underway.
When they redraw these maps, I guess real quick, the one I'm concerned about is number 9.
Yes.
And that one we lost by less than 1%, that congressional seat. And
Right.
that is Marcy Kaptur. So she is ripe for the picking. We got to knock her out. Do you think, they should just redraw 9 a little bit, plug in a few more Republicans somewhere, right?
There you go. Well, I honestly think they are looking at that, and that parties involved are looking at that. Look, the last redistricting cycle carried out by other states has netted the Democrats solid Democrat gerrymanders in several of them, which means the number of potentially competitive seats nationwide has dropped to a low number. And so we're talking about a 3-seat, 4-seat, 5-seat majority either direction, probably in the next Congress, which means each seat matters more than it ever has before. And I would say that Ohio 9 is right for the plucking. It's ours to have if we can not only have the right candidate and have solid support for that candidate, but potentially look at making it a little bit more Republican. I think the index up there right now is about 2.5 points, Republican 2.5 points, somewhere in that neighborhood, which was beatable by Kaptur because I think of her tenure and long experience there. It's not real hard, in my own opinion, to redraw that district and increase that index to 4, 5, 6 points. And if you do that, I think that winds up creating a seat that maybe Marcy Kaptur decides not to run for again. So we'll see how that looks as we get a little bit, farther underway. But I do think that's going to be a target. And I think they're also going to likely look at Ohio 13, which was a close race. I think there's some adjustments that could be made there that could potentially net us another seat or maybe 2 in Congress.
So that's the Akron area.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was another close race. These things are like gold. They
are.
are literally,
Yep.
These congressional seats are so important because
Right.
Such a razor-thin majority now for Trump. And any seat that we can get without losing a seat is gold.
Yes, exactly. I saw early list out that puts both 9 and 13 in the toss-up category for the Democrats. And so, again, I think that's fertile ground and is something we have to look at. And I agree with you, at least as regards the dangers here, because in a tough off year, losing the House would be, I think, very bad for the potential of getting anything done in the second half of a Trump term, and in particular for hopefully setting up our favorite son the vice president to take a look at running for the White House himself in 28. So it's critical. And
That's right. We could have an Ohioan running for presidency in a few years.
I can't think of anything better than that, Joe. I really can't.
That is the ultimate. Yeah, that's the ultimate. We got to get them and we got to get more electoral votes in Ohio. I mean, we used to have like 20. Yeah. Now we got like, what are we, 17, I think. So
and
get it back up to 20.
We were on the bubble. Yeah, we were on the bubble list with the Electoral College last time. I think another 15,000 or so residents counted our way would have retained a seat that we lost. And, you know, there were some real hijinks that took place with the census count last time as well. I think we're going to find out more about that during the course of the next couple of years as some of this information starts coming out. But I don't disagree with you. One of the ways that you get another electoral vote back is you start running Ohio in the way that attracts more people to come move here and to live here and to keep our kids here. So I think that's really what we're all about in terms of the mission going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, Tony, thank you very much for stopping by.
It was a great joy.
I really appreciate it. We got to have you on again so that we can just fire away questions at you. Okay?
I hope you will, and hopefully by that time I'll get my webcam working right. I'm sorry
get
about
that camera. Yeah,
so,
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, although in fairness, you know, it's I've got a face for radio, Joe. That's the right way to put it. So,
no, I've seen your face. It's a TV face. That's a TV face. My face is the radio face. But anyhow, all right. Take care, man. See you. All right.
All right. Great being on. Thanks very much. Good night.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go to Jennifer Gross here. Just a second. I want to play this though. Watch this. This is the USAID Administrator, Samantha Powers. And her net worth was $6.7 million 3 years ago. Guess what it is now? $30 million. And Musk is going to get to the bottom of that. So we've got our world famous state rep, House District 45, Jennifer Gross. How are you?
Welcome.
See. You know, this is weird, but I should be able to get you
there?
over there. How you doing?
Am I on two screens? Because I see myself on two different screens here. So
Twice as nice.
Yeah. Let's see.
You want me to?
I don't know why it's a. Let me try something here. It didn't work. Well, anyhow. How you doing?
Well, where'd you go, Joe? You're gone. Do you want me to turn off my video? There's one.
No. Don't touch anything. Can you see? You touch something.
I can't see you, but I can see two of me. Well, it's really good to be with you tonight. And Joe, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, you know, let me just give a rundown to everybody who's here real quick, and I'm going to let you just run with it, okay?
All right.
But don't. You are on right now. Everybody can. We can see you. If that helps. So you're on.
That's fine.
You're on camera.
I'd rather have have the blank screen, but it's all right.
And okay. All right. First of all, guys, we are going to. Let me see who's out here. Jonathan, you're out here today. How you doing?
Hey, everybody.
Brian is out here. Leonard made it. Leonard? How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Matt's
and we've got Matt Urbis out here somewhere. There he is.
Hey, Matt.
There he is. Ohio Political Action. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Slight different format tonight. This is Jennifer Gross. She's going to run down a bunch of bills that she has co-sponsored or sponsored. SB 1, the Conscientious Right to Refuse, the Meat Integrity Act, that's House Bill 10, the Flat Tax Bill, which is House Bill 30, and Citizenship Data Collection, which is House Bill 42. She's going to go through. We can ask some questions, but she's only going to spend like 5 minutes on each of these, okay? And so we're going to go boom, 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 boom. And then after that, at around 8 o'clock, we are going to open it up and we can have more of a discussion with her. All right?
Great.
That
Sounds
good.
great.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Joe, for the opportunity to be here. I've been meeting with my district for 4 years, and so I'm going to count this as my 38th town hall, and the opportunity to meet with not only my district, which is 45, but also other people in Ohio. Just a reminder that we are in the beginning of the General Assembly. I wish that we were faster at passing legislation. But when you're a full-time legislature, you tend to spend more time. Not saying we need to be like Colorado, but Colorado, for instance, drops a bill in the morning and it gets proponent-opponent testimony and voted out of the House and then goes into the Senate either that same day or the next day. Whereas in Ohio, we start now. So as people are looking at legislation and they want legislation to be moved, it really needs to be dropped in Ohio, not always, because if the legislature wants to move something quickly, we can move it after the first year. But right now, if you have a bill that you want your legislator to drop it really by May or June of this year, because remember how a bill becomes a law. It has to get through the House. It has to see proponent-opponent testimony be amended, if it's going to be amended, and then it has to be passed on the House floor. Then it goes to the Senate and goes through the same process, proponent-opponent testimony. If the Senate then amends a bill in the Senate because they didn't like what the House passed out, it has to come back to the House for an additional vote, which is what often happens in lame duck, which is a bill that I hope to drop after the budget is done, banning lame duck, because I don't believe that we should be having lame duck session. We tend to pass garbage when we have lame duck because a lot of times we are voting at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. So anyway, having said that, Joe, thank you again for having me. So let's talk a little bit about SB1, which, by the way, I have not co-sponsored yet because it just passed the Senate and it is now going to be assigned to committee in the House. I don't know which committee, but I suspect it's going to go to higher ed. And so it will most likely go to the higher ed committee. We're all getting a lot of letters about SB1. SB1, I'm going to take a few extra minutes on this one. It's quite a large bill. It is a bill sponsored by Senator Serino in the Senate, passed very quickly in a month in the Senate. So that shows you with what rapid movement this bill is receiving. It requires the institutions of higher ed to adopt and enforce policy requiring the institutions to prohibit any orientation classes, courses that require diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it prohibits the continuation or the creation of any new DEI offices, and it prevents continuing DEI in the colleges. Remember, these are public colleges in Ohio. It requires each state institution, its policy to affirm and declare that it will not endorse or oppose any controversial beliefs or policies, except on the matters that directly impact the institution's funding or their mission. Let's be really clear, because what we're hearing in the news, and the news is choosing to say that we're going to stifle voices and we're going to stifle opinions. That is absolutely not true. What it actually says is that it requires the institution to affirm and declare that it will not endorse or oppose any controversial beliefs or policies except those which would affect the funding of the institution, the mission of discovery, improvement, or the dissemination of knowledge. So I hope I didn't say that wrong. But by the way, if people want to find this information at our Ohio Legislative Service Commission, they can go to www.lsc.ohio.gov. The next thing, it requires the state institution to respond to complaints. If anyone files a complaint and states that they are using DEI in the university, they are required to respond to that complaint. It also allows the legislature to withhold general funds. The General Assembly can withhold or reduce state operating money as well as capital improvement funds in an organization or a university that continues to implement DEI. So you can see as a conservative why, and also why those who support DEI would oppose this bill. It requires that the university treat all faculty, staff, and students as individuals, allow them to hold their individual equal standards, and they need to provide every individual with equality and the opportunity with regard to their race, ethnicity, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. But it also requires that the university provide no advantage or disadvantage to faculty or staff or students on the basis of their race, ethnicity, religion, sex, orientation, gender identity. So there's that. And I'm going to jump because we are at quite a bit of time, but I also want to really focus on collective bargaining. Remember, these are public universities that salaries and a lot of their money comes from the state. This expands the current law, prohibition against collective bargaining, faculty workload. It prohibits full-time faculty, and I want you to hear this, prevents full-time faculty members of the state institution from striking and instead requires them to submit unresolved collective bargaining disputes to a final offer settlement procedure. It also requires each state institution to develop a 3-credit hour course in the subject of American civic literacy, and it requires the course to include the study of the American economic system and capitalism and mandatory reading assignments. So you can see that those people that are pro-communism, that are pro-collective bargaining for state institutions, and those that want to implement DEI would oppose SB 1. I do believe that SB 1 will pass. I have not spoken to the speaker myself. I cannot tell you that it will not be amended, but I can tell you that I do believe we have the votes in the House. I would look for rapid passage of this bill.
So
that
great.
is
That is
SB 1.
excellent. That is excellent. That's terrific.
So I know I took a long time on that, but that is the only bill right now that has moved out of the Senate that is already into the House, has moved rapidly through the Senate, and probably, I would imagine, through Speaker Huffman will move quickly. The next bill, I believe, was HB 1, and HB 1 is sponsored by Reps Klopfenstein and Reps Daniels. That's Jack Daniels, Rep Jack Daniels. This bill prohibits cell-cultured proteins from being marketed as real meat in Ohio. So we know that right now it's only chicken that is, they're culturing meat, and they're calling it chicken, and they are culturing it from cells. We're very, very crafty with cloning and things like that. This bill requires us to tell the consumer that if it is in, like if you had ground beef, for instance, you know that if there's a meat extender of soy in your ground beef, because it will say soy protein. What we don't see at this point is cell-mediated grown meat. You cannot market that you grew a chicken on the earth and that they ate bugs and were a happy chicken. You cannot say you cannot not say you grew a cell-cultured chicken meat in a petri dish. If you're saying it's chicken, it has to be fully chicken. It can't be cell-mediated chicken. I suspect we'll get beef in the future, but this will protect our food supply, and it requires that is identified in products in Ohio. HB 30 is a bill that would phase down the income tax to a flat tax. And so, as you know, we are moving now. I know, and you guys know that I would want no income tax, right? But we do, depending on who you talk to and what budget you look at, we do receive $8 to $16 billion from our income tax. So we have to have some yahoos decrease the amount of money we're spending in our budget in order to cut the income tax. So a lot of times, as much as I'd like to rip the Band-Aid off and completely go zero income tax, what we're looking at is we've gone from 7 to 3 to 2 brackets. Now we will go to a flat income tax. This will be a challenge because I do believe, and the flat tax would be 2.75%, and that would be beginning in the amount of excess of $27,350. So unless I've misread the bill, which is always possible, and if I mess up, which I probably will, I'm sure I'll hear it on social media, but I'll do my best to not share information that's incorrect. But I do believe that this starts when you earn greater than $27,350 a year. HB 42, how are we doing on time? HB 42 is the bill. This is an exciting bill. And you guys, I hope you find this exciting because I sure do. This bill would require certain agencies to collect and report data concerning citizenship and immigration status of persons with whom they come in contact. So the first group would require our law enforcement to report to the governor annually the number of people detained in the previous year who were United States citizens, the number of people who were detained who were not citizens but were lawfully present in Ohio, and the number of people detained in the previous year who were unlawfully present in Ohio. But it goes beyond that. It's not just people that are in our institutions, our criminal justice system. It also requires the number of students who are citizens or nationals in the United States in the schools, the number of students who are not citizens but are lawfully present in our schools, and also the number of students who are not lawfully present at all that are in our schools, because we do require that our schools accept all students, because in our Constitution it says that we will educate students. We do not turn students away, and that is in our Ohio Constitution. Then it goes on, and the last portion is this. All members in a household, we have to report through the Job and Family Services, all people in a household that are Ohio nationals or U.S. nationals, all those who are lawfully present in Ohio that are receiving SNAP benefits and entitlement programs through the state, and also those in our state that are receiving entitlement programs through Ohio taxpayer money who are unlawfully receiving benefits in Ohio that essentially should not be. So this bill it may seem extremely dry, but it is foundationally important, because we are not able, unfortunately, to get all that information. We don't know the people that are coming into Ohio. This will require that to happen. I'm sure it will have to be reformed, but this is a great first bite and a great glance at the beginning of us being able to track those who are in Ohio. And last but not least, I believe, is the conscientious right to refuse, which is my bill. It is a bill that is hot right now, as we now know that we have 4 people in Ohio who are being denied organ transplant in Ohio because of their vaccine status. This bill is called the Ohio Conscientious Right to Refuse. It does not yet have a number. It should be numbered next week. It prohibits discrimination of any kind for adults or emancipated minors who refuse any vaccine due to a reason of conscience or religion. It prohibits refusal of medical care or transplant services to children whose parents decline vaccination for conscientious or religious objection. It allows for litigation if the discrimination does occur, and it requires the loser to pay reasonable legal costs, which is a legal term, reasonable. The U.S. and state constitutions protect the right of conscience, yet the people of Ohio are still suffering discrimination because of their objection to a vaccine, and I will not give up this fight for medical religious liberty. Are you guys?
No, you're doing okay? You're doing really well on time. So let me just ask you one other question.
Wait a minute.
Then,
let me finish that.
Let
me finish that one. I really am encouraging all people who have a legislator. There are several. What was the guy? Tom was talking earlier about him being one of the biggest, reddest districts in the state. I have 41 colleagues who are in redder districts than me, and some of them did not co-sponsor this bill. I want to encourage all the people within the sound of my voice to encourage their legislator to push this bill through the Health Committee, and to encourage their legislator to push, even if they did not co-sponsor it, to get this bill to the floor. And so I just implore the people to get involved. So that's it. So thank you so much.
So those bills that you just mentioned, Jennifer, so what's the chance of them passing, or are there any that are questionable? That any thoughts on that?
I mean, at this point, they haven't, we haven't even had sponsor testimony in the House. So, some people like to say that Speaker Huffman is going to not pass any medical freedom bills. I will not say that until he doesn't. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and the opportunity to to protect religious liberty and protect reasons of conscience, since we are a state and a nation based on religious liberty. That would probably be the hardest one. I obviously there will be opponents. There were 400 opponents to SB1 in the Senate. They say it's because of DEI. I'm sure that's part of it, but I suspect it's mostly or a lot related to the collective bargaining agreement with SB1. But when we are the ones approving the budget, I do believe that, and it's a state-funded university, that you should not be able to strike against the state taxpayer. So ultimately, if we're putting the money in their budget, in their coffers, then they would be then striking against the people. Right? I mean, because the people, we make no money in the government. Let's be really clear. We take yours and we spend it. So I think it's very fair for the state to say, as far as collective bargaining, we have the ability to do that. I'm being told that maybe my head's cut off in the video. Are you guys seeing me? I mean, I don't know what the people are seeing on their end on Rumble, but I was just.
So I think when Joe puts the frame with the chyron and your name below
Got
it,
it.
then you might you
Got
see
it.
this.
Got it. Okay.
So,
It gets a little cut off. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we have to adjust that for you, but we'll get it next time. One other question for you, Jennifer, and then maybe at 8 o'clock we'll just go into a round robin discussion on some of this stuff. Okay.
Sure.
But what about the budget and Medicaid? Do you want to speak quickly on that?
Well, I am the chair of Medicaid, and Medicaid is, if you look at all of our federal funds, I don't know if your listeners realize this, but approximately 30% of the Ohio budget comes from the federal government when you look at our full operating budget. I would argue that when 30% of your budget comes from the federal government, you are not sovereign. You are not an independent state. We cannot function with the way that our money is coming right now from the federal government. I'm the chair of the Medicaid committee. Medicaid, when you look at our whole budget and all of our funds, is 50.3% of our budget. Approximately 3.3 million Ohioans are on Medicaid. 25% of our spending goes to what we call Group 8. Group 8 was the Medicaid expansion under Kasich in 2013. And when he expanded, he did some terrible things. I'm sorry to the governor, but he did some terrible things that affected our property tax. And some of the things that we're seeing in our property tax, which I hate to bring up, we do have some of that too. We didn't get to that one. I should probably bring that one up too. But he took away a relief valve that automatically prevented our property tax from exceeding a certain amount in percentage increase. But when he expanded Medicaid, we put people at 133% of the poverty level on an expanded program where Ohio pays 10% and the federal government pays 90%. Those people are not disabled. They are not handicapped in any way. These are people that earn 133% or less in their income. But the problem is that they sold this to a lot of the states saying that group of people would not use the benefits. What we're finding is they are actually using all of the benefits. They're largely using the benefits. And just so that everybody knows, one person per month in that category is $909 a month. So, and then anybody, even in our disabled population and others, we are paying $909 for an adult and approximately $330 for a child. So all told, with all monies, including the federal money, a family of four costs the Ohio taxpayer $2,500 per month.
That adds up fast. That adds up
sure
really
does.
quick.
And then if you multiply those numbers by children and adults and you figure out $3.3 million, you can see why our total budget is approximately $47 billion. per year.
That is
So,
amazing. That is
yeah,
that is
so
a massive budget and 4,500 pages long too.
it is. And you know what? Since you said that, Joe, I would encourage everybody listening within the sound of this video, go in there, find the budget, find it, get the PDF, search it, search the things you're interested in, see where the money is going. You're not going to find that on the Ohio checkbook. As great as the checkbook is, you've got to look at this budget. Amendments for this budget are due March 14th. And that means that if you see spending in this budget and the language is out that you don't like, you write and you say to your legislator, I would like you to strike this expense. Like, for instance, I have 8 meetings on my calendar on Tuesday. And what I've begun doing with every organization in the spirit of SB1, when they come in, I'm going and I'm typing the name of their organization, and some are nonprofits, and I'm typing in DEI. And I'm finding that a large portion of the people coming in and asking for money on Medicaid have page after page of DEI on their websites. Now, you would think that if they were looking, that they would scrub their websites. Now, they also need to not do that anymore. And personally, and I posted this on social media, if an organization spent money on DEI, they should be removed by that amount of money. Their budget ought to be lowered by that amount, and they should be penalized so that they don't do it again. And that came from a person who wrote on my Twitter page or X page. So I love that idea. I'm like, hey, I like this person. So.
Okay, so let's do this. That was excellent. You gave a great summary of everything. Let me just recap this. It's Senate Bill 1, which is diversity inclusion, conscientious right to refuse.
Yes, yes.
The Meat Integrity Act, which is House Bill 10.
Yep.
Flat tax bill, House Bill 30.
HB 30. Yep.
And citizen data collection, House Bill 42. All right, let's open it up to some of these guys. So you did a terrific job there. Let's go to Brian. Brian, you have a question on any of that stuff you like to direct?
Yeah, the House bill that Jennifer has sponsored, the vaccine. What's the number on that again?
There is no number yet, Brian, because we dropped it Friday. We'll have a non-voting session on Tuesday. Just a reminder, we are required to have session every 5 business days, and so when we aren't there as a full house, we have what we call a non-voting session, and that non-voting session will occur and the bill will be spread upon the journal, and at that point the bill will receive a number. So we don't quite have it yet. People can look at Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom and where they can find the bill number when that time occurs. I'm sure they'll be very active promoting the bill. I'll put it on my website as well, or at my X page, when that time happens. But
so we really can't help you until the bill has a number. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Right. It's just so hot. I was on Fox and Friends on Friday morning. Articles are being written. Children's Health Defense has written on it. It's being written everywhere, and people are calling me. I'm finding more and more children are being denied. I have 2 children now at Cincinnati Children's. I know of 1 boy at Cleveland Clinic. I also know of a man at Christ Hospital who is being declined a heart transplant. So,
can you talk a little bit about those stories and what is the justification of these hospital systems to do something like this, right? So you pointed out, I mean, it's a little esoteric. I mean, it's floating in the Constitution that says, the Ohio Constitution says the right to conscience. We have it, and I'm guessing, and I think I've read a bit on some of this, they've invoked a religious, conscientious objection, and these hospital systems can just completely ignore it. I mean, this is shocking and really terrifying to me as a father. Can you talk a little bit about these stories and what are they standing on? What ethical, moral grounds are they standing on?
And I'd like to say, Matt, it's an honor to be here with you. I've followed you for probably 4 years now, and it's really awesome to see your face. So, it's interesting because a lot of Liberty people will say to me, well, why do we have to have a bill? This shouldn't be happening. This bill allows for litigation too. So, I mean, it does speak about that legal fees have to be paid back to the person who loses. So, a lot of times you'll see a lot of bills that come through that say, oh, well, they can sue. But the problem is, what average Ohioan has 5, 10, 15, 20,000 set aside for legal fees. I mean, they may have some money set aside in the emergency fund because they're Dave Ramsey, they're good Dave Ramsey people, and they're fiscally conservative. But most Ohioans don't have that kind of money. The hospital is saying that is they what here's what I would tell you. Their research and their standards come from the NIH. I mean, are people getting tired of the letter agencies? All I can tell you is the research dollars come from the NIH. Some of these hospitals are high in research, and I get that. You know, we need to do research to get better. But their standards are from the NIH that says, you know, organ transplant requires all their vaccines. Well, the problem is what happens when a person goes on an organ transplant or otherwise? They get anti-rejection drugs. Well, what do anti-rejection drugs do? They subdue and squash down the immune system because the immune system is what fights against an organ, right? So they're saying it's the science, follow the science. This is the recommendation. The problem is that children are immune compromised anyway. And the chance that a vaccine is going to work in the first place, especially with people that are getting heart transplants, we know there's data out there that shows that the COVID vaccine has caused cardiomyopathy. Now, I'm a legislator in this role, so I don't want to talk about, you know, medical stuff. I don't want to get into a contest with a medical person. What I want to say is this. If you do not want a medical treatment pushed that's permanently into your body, or the parents of a child do not want this, why would a hospital force this? And think about this. Think if we did pass this bill, how many people would come from other states to Ohio begging for transplant, and how much better we might get as Ohio because we're doing more of these. And they're very, very, the boy I just learned about tonight is 8 years old. His grandfather is in Butler County, and they called me. His mother is a PhD in research in Kentucky. And her child is 8 years old. They go to Boston. He's had 4 open heart surgeries, 24, cardiac casts. This child is sick. And even the surgery may not save his life. Okay, he is really, really sick. But in order to get better at these things, we have to try. And these children are not like an automatic match. You don't know when they're going to get a match. You don't know if they're going to survive into the match. But at this point, some of these institutions won't even put these people on their transplant list. So there is no hope for them beyond, what medicine and what current LV machines for, like the left ventricle assist machines for people that are in heart failure. So I don't know. Did I answer your question, Matt? It should.
I think so. So you're saying it goes back to NIH standards?
Yeah, research. I mean, they don't want to lose their research dollars, but they also, as of now, we have not seen the statement from Children's as to what their actual policy is. And look, Children's does some great work. I am not attacking Children's by and large. What I'm saying is we need to relook at this. Things have changed since COVID. And I think that we have to stop digging our heels in and saying, this is the way it's always been, and this is the way we're going to do it. We need to have compassion. The one boy up north, his father was an absolute, almost exact match for a kidney, and they were refused a kidney transplant because his father wasn't vaccinated. I mean, it gets
That's crazy.
To the point,
That's absolutely crazy.
And we have states that are pulling the vaccine off the market and demanding that, We're not saying that. You want to get the shot, get the shot. I believe in your liberty and your choice to make that decision. But to double down and say, because you did not do what we want you to do, knowing there's concerns about these shots, I think that we need to relook at things. And so this bill is an attempt, and I just pray that we can move this bill fast enough that we can save someone's life.
I think you will.
I think that's probably critical because, there are people whose, lives are potentially at stake, and it doesn't matter what happened, right? So it's my understanding. So we have a new head of the HHS.
Yes.
And the NIH is sort of subservient to that, to Robert F. Kennedy. Right. And so we hope and we pray that's going to change, but I think that's going to take time. It may not be the whirlwind thing that we've seen in some of the other departments federally, but things are happening. First, they're happening right now. These families are real. And the other thing is that you don't know what's going to happen 4 years from now. And the the status quo comes back for 12 years. We need this sort of, we need Ohio to lead for once, I think.
You know what else, Matt? Depending on how you feel this virus even started, really depends on whether you believe this vaccine is vital to life. Because there are some people who believe that the nefarious way this virus was released on the world, that it was actually done, nefariously, that this was not accidental. And so, I don't want to get to, conspiracy theory person, but I don't think that we've won the battle on proof with this virus. I don't think that we've won the battle on science with this virus. I don't think we've convinced the population at this point at large about this virus. And I hope that nothing like this happens again.
You better believe it. We got to keep tabs on all that kind of stuff. Jonathan, what's happening?
Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, Rep Gross. Thanks for joining
Hi.
us. Happy to have you back on.
Full
So I was
disclosure,
making some notes here.
Jonathan, in full disclosure, Jonathan came to my swearing in this year. So hopefully you guys can come if I get elected next time, unless you guys unelect me. So
We need you back in again. And I'll tell you what, if anybody has the opportunity to go down to the People's House in Columbus for any occasion, I put that in the notes also. Go down to Columbus. Rep Gross was talking about the process of getting a bill through legislation. By all means, if you can get there, you live near Columbus, go in and watch. It sounds, and I remember it wasn't all that long ago when I was starting to hear about the process of legislation. It sounded complex and onerous, and it is actually fascinating. Go and check it out. And if you have opportunity, if there's a bill that comes up that you feel a certain way about, go. It's actually pretty easy to go and testify, to provide your comments on that. Rep Gross, I was honored to be with you at your swearing in. A few things. One, and it just occurs to me every time you're describing all those bills that you ran through, it's always follow the money. For me, I just look at like who's making money and where. And behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of talk all throughout Ohio of Doge Ohio. And frankly, I think if we get to that, a lot of the problems that you're talking about of things not getting passed, not getting onto the floor for a vote, et cetera, a lot of that stuff works its way through the system if we can unravel some of the nefarious ways that money gets sent to the wrong places. I'm just going to try
Jonathan, I'm going to tell you, you know that movie, someone can tell me, what is that movie, I See Dead People? They put me, when Speaker Huffman put me as chair of Medicaid, now all I see is waste. I look everywhere, I see waste. I find waste everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I mean, don't get me started. I mean, we spent $7 million of your taxpayer dollars on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and $7 million on the NFL Hall of Fame. And as much as I like those two organizations, why are we spending taxpayer dollars on that? And so when I see that, when I see $14 million like that, would you not agree with me that that's the tip of an iceberg that we need to get on? We need to get on top of that, and we need to figure that out. And when we keep taxing you and we say, oh, but we balanced our budget, and we just keep spending more and more of your money, then I would say that we have a lot of work to do. So we need my office. I mean, my aides don't have to sleep in their offices like apparently Elon Musk is doing in DC. But there's a reputation in the House that my aides work very, very hard, and they'll say it's hard to work for Rep Gross, not because I'm hard to work for, but because my aides work very, very hard. I have two, a constituent aide now and a legislative aide, and I'm very proud of both Megan and Maddox who work in my office. So we do our best, but you guys have to go to your legislator first when you have concerns before you come to me, because I can't possibly, with two staffers, be able to handle 11.9 million Ohioans.
So I have a question, and it relates to the conscientious right to refuse. One of the things that people on my side of the equation, and I readily admit that I'm one of these people out here. I don't hold the seat that you do. Thank heavens, because I come out swinging, and I'm not trying to be polite.
You think I'm not swinging?
Oh, well, no, I don't take it that way. I'm saying you have to try and strike a balance, and you have to work with some of the people that you have to work with.
Right.
I tend to kind of go right after them. when it comes to the conscientious right to refuse and medical freedom in Ohio, one of the early sticking points for me, and I think it's something that we've sort of skipped over in the process of trying to fight back against the mandates and everything, is taking one step back. What is a vaccine? We know, and I'm sorry to bring this back up, but I'm still like 3 years ago stuck on this ridiculousness of redefining vaccine. Basically, now it means an ameliorant. And as we're talking about this, I think we've inadvertently adapted language of people who have bad intention. Now, again, for me, there's a big factor. I follow the money, look at who's making money in the hospital systems. And I think it was Marcel Sturbridge put a quote up about the how insurance companies pay and how hospitals make money, etc. Setting that aside for a moment, isn't there room, or do you think in your legislative and medical opinion that we maybe should be talking more about what the processes are, what the medical interventions are that are being forced upon us? I call it the jab. The jab, in my book, I still refuse to acknowledge that as a vaccine, because it isn't. It doesn't stop the infection or transmission of anything. It's a darn ameliorant. And the notion then, when you start with that, the notion that somewhere like Cincinnati Children's Hospital is going to still mandate that has to be done before a life-saving medical life-saving medical intervention can be done for the children there, it's ridiculous on its face. I wonder if you have a comment on that.
I would say that everything goes away when we allow reason of conscience and religious liberty, regardless of even if it's a vaccine that I believe in, even if it's a vaccine that I don't believe in. And I just so you know, I can't speak clinically because I don't speak that way in this role. But what I would say is everything goes away when we allow religious liberty and reason of conscience to be honored. I was very strong with vaccines before all of this started. I call myself, and I've told people this before, that I was a vaccine zealot. I mean, I would say to you, it's your responsibility and herd immunity and all of that, which is why the media never really told the truth about who I am and what my history was. But the reality is that you get the choice to determine, and parents get the choice to determine whether their children are vaccinated or not. And we need to protect medical liberty. For instance, and by the way, this bill does protect the employer as well. So if the person decides to not get a vaccine for measles, for instance, and someone says they got exposed to measles in that place of employment, the employer is not held liable in this bill. So this has business protection in it as well, and it's important for me to highlight that, even if it is a vaccine that is understood by the medical community, or they are purporting to state that this vaccine prevents disease. I would encourage everyone, again, within the sound of my voice, to research now every single vaccine that has been done up until, and all of them. I think that we need to actually look at each one by one and look at them. So.
You got it. Let me just go. I'll come back to any of you guys, but I want to get Leonard in here real quick. Leonard, how you doing, man? And you have a question? Oh, let me see here.
He's been silenced.
Yeah, you've been silenced.
Leonard, where are you?
Leonard.
Your mouth moves,
oh
no.
Go ahead, Leonard.
But anyway,
you're tongue-tied. That's what it is. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this because I know it's kind of tough people just firing questions all the time. But one of the things that's been interesting to me when I started thinking about the estate, I started thinking about the financial brevity of the state and whether or not it's financially in our budget relative to the we're getting. What happens to the state when the federal turns the spigot off?
So when you're talking, you kind of cut out there. Are you talking about the expansion group, the ACA expansion group? Okay. They are talking about doing that, and what we plan to put, and I hope the speaker will agree. I think that he will. I can't speak for him. I do hope that also Representative Stewart, who is the chair of finance, will also agree that if the federal government cuts spending, we can't possibly come back to the taxpayer and say, you now are going to pay 10% of the group that really needs to go out and work more than 20 hours. By the way, the cutoff is approximately $1,200 a month. You have to make $1,200 a month and you qualify for it's whatever the for a person one anyway. You have to look at the 133% poverty level. I don't want to quote the limits there, but if the federal government cuts off, we have what we call a trigger in the budget. Now, the current one that's in there seems to be a little weak, but we'll be working on that. And what we will likely do, there are many options here, but there are states that have already set up that if the federal government cuts their spending in our state, we'll immediately drop all of the expansion people, which is 25% of our Medicaid population. We will not touch our handicapped, our elderly, our disabled. That is traditional Medicaid. The only ones that we will touch in that case will be the ACA expansion that happened under Obama and Kasich, and those people either can be immediately cut off or we can immediately stop enrollment, and then as they drop off, they're not allowed to come in. Another option is that you get a maximum of 3 years in that group, and once you've met your 3 years, you cannot come back onto the expansion. There are some other real creative things that we've discussed, but I'd be remiss to mention them at this point because they're just dreams in my head right now.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great that you put some kind of term limits or something on that Medicaid. We've got to do that. I'm going to go around the horn one last time here, Brian.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, one more time. That does not touch our developmentally disabled, our elderly that are on Medicaid, our blind, our, all the people that are women and children, pregnant women and children. That does not touch that population. It touches the 19 through 64 that could be working and aren't. They literally have no disability. They are not on disability.
Yeah, so they got to get out and work. Got to get out and work. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Brian. I'm going to go around the horn one last time here. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jennifer, one last question. If the Federal Department of Education is finally, terminated, what kind of ripples will that have in the state of Ohio for our education system?
I've thought about that, and obviously we do receive some lunch money and some other things. We have a hybrid education system, and my numbers are not correct, but just when I'm out in the field talking to my constituents, we're like 40-40-10-10. So 40% of our school spending comes from the state, 40% comes from property tax, 10% comes from fees. And this is not exact. So when people go and figure it out, it's 32 and 8 and whatever. It's not like that. But it's just, I can make it 10% of our school funding comes from the federal government. I don't know if they do away with the Department of Education, though doing away with the Department of Education may give more money. There'll be more money in the coffers. So they may still give us that 10% without a Department of Education. But what I don't know is if they do away with the Department of Education, does that also do away with any federal funding? I believe Ohio is strong enough that we could pick that up. And I'm not saying it would be easy, but we've got to reduce spending. You see Elon Musk saying if we reduce spending by $2 billion a day in the United States, that by 2 years we can balance our budget. So what can we do in Ohio if we spend our money more wisely? I'm not saying that'll happen, but the Department of Education goes away. Ohio is fine. We can manage through our own department, Ohio Department of Education, manage our own schools as it used to be. Remember, guys, who developed the Department of Education? I'll buy you a Coke.
Was it Carter?
Carter, yes. Who said that, Joe or Jonathan?
Well, I cannot tell a lie, so it was me. So you
Hey,
owe
that
me
was smart. That
a
was-
Pepsi, not a Coke. I want a Pepsi.
Okay, well, I owe you a Pepsi then. But so we did okay without the Department of Education. They have simply just grown and grown and grown. And what benefit have the states gotten? Remember that the Constitution is limited, and we don't need a Department of Education. It's not in the U.S. Constitution. It is not the department, but that we will educate our children is in the Ohio Constitution. It is not in our federal Constitution. It is not part of the enumerated powers, and it needs to go away. Each state can manage their own education system. That's it. And we
Amen
can
to that. Amen. Amen. Matt, you got anything you want to say in closing?
Oh my goodness, so many things. But I guess when it comes to education funding, I'm seeing there's a lot of talk, and I'm talking about the state portion of it. What are you hearing as far as sort of continuing the status quo? I saw a rather interesting idea, and I think it's just the outline of an idea, concepts of a plan, as the big man would say, out of the Senate. Senator Brenner is talking about maybe we just have a single, we kind of do away with all the question about local tax increases, and we have a single tax across the state. I don't know exactly what the details of it, but where do you think we're going to end up? There's a lot of angst across the state now in terms of local property taxes, and you know, if you get rid of some, then you've got to make it up somewhere else, and all this kind of stuff. Doing away with the idea of we need to cut, we need to streamline, radically streamline, I think, education. Where do you think, where would you like to see it go, and where do you think it'll end up?
You know, Matt, why, if we cut spending, do we have to take it somewhere else? How about we just cut spending? How about we just give it back to the people? Now, other states, excuse me, a lot of states, Missouri, Indiana, they put all the money of education at the state level, and the state divvies it out. This is not uncommon. My good friend, Representative Ron Ferguson, said today, and he's just trying to stoke the fires, but he said, get rid of property tax. I believe Thomas Massey said, you know, get rid of property tax. I totally agree, but 65% of my property tax go to the school, and I pay about $6,000 a year. That's a lot of money per household in my neighborhood going to the public schools. So where's that money going to go? What's it going to look like? How is that going to happen? You know, I don't know, but I'm willing to try it because I was in public school. I went to school in my formative years in Indiana. I graduated from high school from a public school in Missouri. All of those schools ran very well. I was never, you know, you guys remember, I'll bring back an old term, Common Core. I was never behind. My father worked for the FAA, so we moved around. Even though my parents were Buckeyes, we moved all around the nation. And I was never behind because a second grade teacher knows by their license what a second grader needs to know. And a high school science teacher knows what a high school student needs to know for chemistry. So, you know, I think that it would be okay. I kind of like the idea, and I like where Senator Brenner's going. And the reason I think he is going there, and I can't speak for him, would be because if we're going to do away with property tax, 65% of my property tax goes to the schools. Where the money's going to go, we're going to lower it. How that's going to look, I don't know. The problem with property tax is that we are passing over 90% of all of our levies every time they go on the ballot. And the legislature knows this. We have talked about this as a caucus. The people say, lower our property tax, and yet the levies pass time and time and time again, which are increasing their property tax. And they come to us and say, lower our property tax. And it's like, okay, then you've got to, you can't keep voting to raise levies, which are your property tax, if you then come to the legislature and say lower our property tax, because you're the one who's raising them. That I didn't get to talk about one bill, and maybe we'll do it next month, but that is the bill that talks about renewal levies versus replacement levies. A lot of people don't understand the levy system and what they're doing. They hear renewal and they hear replacement, and they think they're both the same. They are not. A renewal levy increases your property tax. So I might have gotten it wrong. A replacement levy. I'll need to go back and look at it because I get confused. See, I get confused too. That's HB 28. We'll talk about it again next month.
So yeah, that'd be a good one.
right.
I'm going to throw this over corner into Jonathan here.
I'm open, Matt. I'm open to
Okay,
doing.
so-
Hey, hang on one second. Let me just read one of these because they've been popping up and we've never read any of them. Let me just read this. Anyone proposing to ditch property tax, which is wildly popular, needs to build the counter argument for opponents that'll use hysterical arguments and cutting schools.
They always use hysterical arguments.
I think, yeah, they will. But I also, I believe in ed choice, and so does Speaker Huffman. I think that as we're moving toward, I'm just saying, look, I'm not speaking for the speaker. I'm not even saying that I agree with this. All I'm going to say is I'm going to put it out there. Let's just say we believe in ed choice, and we do. Let's just say that we begin giving state money and, which is public money, we give it to the parents and they take it to the school, which we're already doing. Let's just say we also start working on buildings and we also give some of the tax money to all schools because now they're getting vouchers and they're getting ed choice. We get to the point where the state is playing a lot in that system, and it would make sense that Senator Brenner's bill then would become a thing, because then the state divvies it out and parents get ed choice. And other than most homeschoolers, because homeschoolers they want out of the government, they want no touch at all. They don't want the money, they don't want to be included. That's in general what our homeschoolers want, and I get it. But let's say the charter schools, the public charter, the private charter, the Montessori private, the Christian schools, the Muslim schools, the Sikh schools. I hope I get a Sikh school here in my district because I have a huge Sikh population. Let's just say we're giving money to all of them. I think it does start to look like the state should probably then just divvy it out to everybody equally, and it should be, I would say that
I want to say, I mean, I'm a homeschool. Well, we're a homeschool family, but speaking on behalf of the private schools, I know. Even if they are, I think a lot of them look at that state money with sort of dollar signs in their eyes. But I encourage you, Representative, and the let's say the conservative members of the caucus to work to put in some guardrails. I think we already saw some disturbing legislation last year about, well, if you're going to be getting the state money, well, we're going to start putting out a state report card.
There's already one. There's one of the liberals has dropped a bill saying that all the private schools need to be tested like the public schools. No,
exactly right. And so, then I don't know how to do it, but we need to understand that. Look, if there is a school that as little as 30 people have decided to send their kids to, that's the report card. And if they continue to send their kids to that school, that's the report card, and that is all we need. They qualify.
You know what that is, Matt? Free market principles.
Exactly. And we don't. I'm worried we don't have constitutionally a protection here. And the more we start giving that money out, they're going to, if we aren't vigilant, they're going to start clawing back and demanding, well, it's state funding. This is the taxpayers' money.
But remember,
it's a scary proposition.
It is it is challenging because right now how we get away from, we're giving the money to the parents and the money follows the child. So if we start getting into that is a concern. But I would also argue, I don't know a lot of public school teachers either who like testing. They start teaching to the test. It doesn't really show what a child is learning. And again, I go back to the professional who knows what an 8th grade math student needs to know and what a gym teacher needs to teach about health, which, by the way, I like Vivek's standards of the medical fitness, the U.S. fitness test again. But we have to allow our state to allow teachers to teach children, hold them to a standard on what curriculums need to look like, but to teach to a test doesn't work. They memorize the answers, or the teacher teaches to the test. We know that they spend hours and hours and hours having to teach children how to take this test. that isn't learning.
No, that's not
And
learning.
and so yeah, so
I'm gonna Jennifer Jonathan. Did you have anything you want to add?
Well, you guys know me. I'm going to bite my tongue on the school funding issue. I could go on for hours about that one. One clarifying point, and then I have a question for Rep. Gross. The clarifying point was for anybody that doesn't know, my reference to the definition of vaccine relates to redefining it in 2021. That wasn't clear. But I want to talk a little bit about DEI at Ohio State University. So when we talk about pushing back and state funding and universities, it actually may be the case, Rep. Gross, when you are in the State House, that you're in really kind of the hotbed, you're in the lion's den. There are some arguments being made that Ohio State University may be the largest DEI program in the country, with something like $13 million of funding and
that's right,
all
and
kinds of stuff. So
201
how do we fight that?
201 employees. This bill, SB1, is going to help curb that. And, I'm meeting, I think, at some point with the Ohio Student Senate. And I'll be talking, to them. I don't know what. I'm sure this will come up. I have other things that I'd like to talk to them about, like standards for their engineering program and all of that. But I'm sure they'll bring up whatever they want to talk to me about in that meeting. So, we have to start somewhere. And if I had my way, I would cut any university that I know and we know, and there are more. There's one very close to me that has page after page after page of DEI that they're spending money on. And if they're spending money on DEI, we should, as a legislature, reduce their budget request by the amount of money that they spent on DEI and fine them for doing it. Now, if we do that, Jonathan, I'm not really big on punitive action, just so you know. I'm not the mother of my constituents. They have a mother, they don't need a mother. But in this case, it's a waste of state tax dollars, and I am charged with spending your money wisely. That money is being wasted. Therefore, there needs to be punitive action at least once that says, and don't change the name of it either. Don't change it from DEI to something else like CRT and all the other things, Don't do that. And so that's why I think there does need to be a fine or some type of retribution in that case, because if we don't show them, and I don't know, maybe reducing their budget by the amount they spent last budget is enough. We don't need to be draconian, but maybe if we do that, they won't do it again, because we will find out. We will find out. Like I told you, when people are coming in to ask me for money, I'm looking up on their websites, and I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I spoke with Chair Stewart, Chair of Finance, running the budget. I said, hey, I found this organization. I looked at them, and they want money, and this is what they do. And he goes, cut them. And I'm
there you go.
So I'd happily cut them. And I'm sad about it, because what they do is necessary. But if they're wasting tax dollars if they're wasting your money on this stuff, I'm responsible to make sure they don't anymore. And if they get cut in funding, they go, hey, why did you cut us? And we say, because we went to your website and we saw the DEI on every page. They might think twice next time. But they might go out of business in the process. And again, is that not the way it works in capitalism? So,
Leonard, can you hear me? Leonard.
No, can you hear?
yes.
I think so.
Oh.
Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
You're
Okay,
the last one, so you're going to wrap it up. So it has to be the absolute best question of the entire night, okay?
The last, but
no
not
pressure.
the least,
No
Leonard.
pressure.
Okay. I just have one question. Should the government, whether it be state
Uh-oh.
Or federal,
be
State or federal?
be involved in education?
State or federal, be involved
you
in
asked me that, I
education.
think, Leonard, last time. And I think to the nth degree, the answer is no. That parents should
Thank
be
you.
able to do that. Okay? However, in our Ohio Constitution, it says Ohio is responsible to educate children. So we're unique in that way. Not every state has that. And because it's in our Constitution, remember that's the law of the land, we set that out in the 1800s that we would educate children. So ultimately, because education is not in our U.S. Constitution, no. But because it is in our Ohio Constitution, we said yes. So as an Ohio citizen, we are responsible to be involved in some way. As an Ohio legislature, we're responsible to be involved in some way. I think the stretch and pull comes, how are we involved?
All right. Well, I got to tell you, I got to give you some applause there.
That's a good answer.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
2 thumbs up. All right.
Thank you,
So
Joe.
we really appreciate you taking the time and go over your
Let's
bills.
do it again
and all
next
that.
month.
Yes, we will do it again next month. Going to put it on the calendar 1 month from today, roughly.
Okay.
And
Sunday.
On a
Thanks,
Sunday.
Rep Bros.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very
It's
much.
really an honor to be here. I really appreciate you. I cannot thank you enough.
Well, thank you. We couldn't do it without you, that's for sure. Have a good. Thank you again. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Just gonna wrap this up. Thanks again, Jennifer. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sirs. All of y'all. Leonard, Joe, Jonathan, and Matt.
All right, I got to leave it with some heavy metal here. Okay, here's some heavy metal.
Hold
stuff,
on,
man.
Joe. Hold on. We didn't
oh.
promote ourselves at all.
All right, go
So-
ahead. Do it. That's your job.
Okay,
I
let's
held
go.
up my mug.
Make sure to go
Hey, look,
to
here's my mug.
ohiopoliticalnews.com and just share.
Look at that
There you go, the
beautiful
mug.
mug. Woo. Look at
Ooh,
that.
those are
And
nice.
make sure-
Mug shot. A mug shot.
Jonathan's on the cup.
Jennifer, we'll have to get you one of those.
I'd
We'll
love
get
to have one.
We'll get you one of those. But anyhow, go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, go ahead. Also, let's go over here. We'll just go to this for right now. And go to ohiopoliticalnews.com. Make sure to also go to X. We're on Rumble. We are on YouTube. Find us on YouTube again. We will build that up. Also, we will be trying to build this also with the state. We were running a couple streams last week. We will be covering more of the State House and the live streams there. We'll also be covering a lot of the stuff with, I believe we're going to go over to a lot of things with property taxes with Brian and Leonard. But make sure to go to our social media and support us. If you're live right now on Rumble, go click the $sign down at the bottom or the gift in the Rumble rant. You can either just support us with the $sign, or if you want to pay us forward, you can do a gift and you can basically then pay for someone else to send some money. So we appreciate that. Also, make sure to go to the website. There is a support button, and if anyone wants to get any kind of word out about Ohio, please let us know. I know Joe's email is popped on his lower third, so share us throughout the state. We're trying to reach the whole state, so please let people know about us. So that's my spiel, and I'll let you go, Joe.
There we go. A thing of beauty. A thing of beauty right there. All right, guys. Thanks, Kent. Yes, it's promote, and follow us on X and everything else. All right. Good night. I got a heavy metal song I got to play. Good night.
You fucker!
Oh, we got Trump on the drums, JD Vance, you name it.
Now you're the ones who've lost their
I think Trump got on the RFK fitness regimen.
Yeah, he has been on that RFK fitness.
The world played us for fools.
mean business, that's for sure. Yeah, Trump's been hitting the weights a little bit.